So let me start first by saying a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful hello, not only to you, but also to those that are watching us here in the Zoom room. I ask everyone that's in the Zoom room to please mute yourself and please not send messages in the chat during this time. When maybe later we'll go for questions. Are you hearing some feedback? Okay. Uh, got my new microphone. So Um, so yes, so I'm really, really so excited for everyone that is here. Especially thank you so much for you, Kendra, to for you to be willing to take this time out to be my first guest on Phenomenal Speaks a Journey with Franda. I'm really, really thrilled to have you here. So let's get this party started. Let me tell you a little bit about Kendra. So gonna need the glasses for that part, even though I
I
probably will know it by heart
understand.
by now, right? So
We
Kendra is
understand.
Kendra Newman is an experiential learning and lifestyle facilitator and coach. She is also or was my coaching student, and I have become her coaching mentor, which is quite an honor for me. Kendra is also the owner of Tech Yours LLC. She is also an author of the book Lessons in Legacy, which she'll tell us more about that in a little bit. Not only that, on the personal side, oh, I forgot one thing. She's also the host of the podcast Dream Aloud with Kendra. Now, on the personal side, Kendra is a wife, a mother, a daughter, a cousin, and most of all, and as important as all the other ones, a friend, and definitely a friend to me. So, Kendra, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. It's great. Notice that it never said I was a sister because I'm an only child.
Oh my goodness. And I'm an only child too. Maybe that's why we connect so well.
Probably. Probably.
So,
We're
Kendra,
the
I,
best.
I would love to know about you. I
So,
know a lot your life and some of the things that you've done, but there's a couple little things there that I just kind of want to throw in right here at the beginning.
okay. So you just want to know a little bit about me?
Yes, and then I'm going to ask you some questions.
So you've given everybody the things that I do. What you didn't add was my profession for the last 30 years has been project management and IT in higher ed. And so all the skills that I have from that work is transferable to the facilitator and the coaching. So a little bit about me. I just said I was an only child, but I come from a really big family. It's a little family, my mom, my dad, and myself. And then I had a son. So my mother's deceased. And so it's my father, my husband, and my son. So it's my father, my son, and myself. And then I got married. So I have my three dudes. I call them my three dudes. Those are my favorite guys, the three of them. So I'm the only girl still. So still get to be special. And but at my core, I always ask this question of anybody who goes through my programs, or when I'm on Facebook or in a podcast, who are you at your core? And at
Mm,
my core, I am family oriented. My values are truth, community, and love. And so I always cheat. Those three are it's a cheating because love includes God and
mm,
self and everything else that means something to me. Truth includes integrity. That is so important to me to be an integral person. I'm not worried about what everybody else does, but for me that's very important. And then community incorporates that family element as well as my neighbors and the people that I pull into my world that I consider to be my extended family and friends and acquaintances. So that's who I am in my core. I'm a storyteller. My gifts are encouragement and helping others. And so if you're having something, I'm the person who's helping. If I'm there early, I'm going to bring something, I'm going to help you. That's just who I am. And so at my core, I am a helper, an encourager, and that person who brings other people together.
Mm.
So that's me at my core. Um, where do you want to go from there?
That is absolutely powerful. That alone is so powerful. Now you mentioned that you have a son.
I do.
Tell me a little bit about that. And
Well,
about this taking your son to college.
okay, yeah. So my son is 32. I'm sorry if you didn't want me to tell people that. I've already told it. He's 32, I'm 51. You can do the math, right? But it's February, so the math says that I'm 19 years older than him, but really I was 18 years old when I had him, and then I turned 19 in November, and then I turned 19 in January. It was an interesting journey to that point. I've always been the good kid, the rule follower, the person who does everything right. By the time I got to high school, I was always a little chunky girl. So by the time I got to high school, I was a little thinner. And so then I just started having fun and enjoying myself, living the little double life, the good girl over here, doing my thing over there. And in my senior year, I began dating my son's father. Um, he was cute. And that's pretty much it. He was just cute. He looked good on my arm. And actually, I was in love with someone else, but we had gotten in trouble. Maybe I was like 17, and we said we were going somewhere and we didn't go. And so my mom didn't like him. So I wanted to please my mom. So I'm dating this guy that she likes, but I'm really, really attached to the guy over here. So, I just decided I'll have fun, I'll hang out with him, and then I'll go to college and I'll dump him. And in the meantime, before college, because I was accepted to Rutgers, I'm really good in math, and I was always a good student. I got my first C in the 10th grade, and it was in drama. So that means I'm just not an actress, okay? But but for the most part, I always got good grades, and that was expected of me. And so instead of going to a traditional college, I found myself pregnant. And then everybody's like, okay, I guess you're not going to school. And my mom said, oh yes, she's going to school. You're going to go to school. Um, my relationship with my son's father was very tumultuous. He tried to use the situation, my pregnancy, us having a child, to keep me from going to college.
Mm.
My mother said, "No, we're gonna watch her. We're gonna watch the baby, and she's gonna go to school, and she can do whatever she wants. It's only 4 years." Well, I decided that I didn't want to be that mother where somebody else raises your child. Have you ever heard Chris Rock's his joke about if you live with if it's your mother and your grandmother, and you live with your grandmother, and you call your grandmother mother, and you call your mom Pam, you're going to jail. I didn't want any of that.
I
So
got
mommy and my parents did help a lot, but I did not want to be Kendra to my son. I wanted to be mom. And at first, it really was just my response. I felt like it was my responsibility. And but I realized that that the pregnancy, that everything was used for control.
mm.
So I guess I probably got pregnant about February, and I was in denial for at least until May, until I was getting sick and I had to say, look, I'm pregnant. Um, his decision was we can buy a house and we can do this and we can do that. No, it would have been me just stuck in the house because he was really controlling my life,
Mm.
parents' house. And I'm a private person, even with my parents, so I never really told them. They never knew exactly what was going on. So I would go out in public and just look straight ahead. If I looked to the left or the right, I would be accused of, well, who are you looking at? Why are you looking over there? Who's that? How do you know them? And if someone saw me and said, hey, Kendra, then it was really on. How do you know them? Who is he to you? So even
Yeah.
in family situations, I have a huge family, and he would be places with me, and I'd introduce this cousin or that cousin, and he would just stare them down and not say anything. And I was like, why
Mm,
didn't you speak to them? He says, because I don't know who they are. They don't have to be your cousin. I don't know if they're your
mm,
cousin or not. So, and everything that I would say, he'd go and verify with people. And I just felt like I was in prison. At
mm,
first, it was really cute. So when I first started dating him, we were in high school. I was in high school, and he would drive me to school and pick me up and take me out. And there was flowers, and there was this and that. But it was all just to keep me away from my friends. Looking back on it, my senior year was a year from hell. Actually, I don't
mm,
remember much
mm,
towards the
mm,
end. After I had my son, I totally don't remember much. I even put in my book um, what happened at a family reunion because he'd already paid, and I'd broken up with him, but I allowed him to go to the reunion, and
mm,
he embarrassed us. He embarrassed
mm,
us. I think the week, maybe 2 weeks before that, because he lost his job following me around.
mm.
He says, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "I'm just going to spend some time with my mom." He quit. He didn't go into work because he wanted to make sure that I was with my mother. I've been called
My
17
goodness.
times in a day. I counted. It was 17 times. And that
My
happened
goodness.
on a regular basis. I worked at the bank. He would come through the drive-through and he got an account. He would, he couldn't bank with me, but he'd come through the drive-through just to make sure that I was there. And
Wow.
so when I finally had enough, we were at his mother's house, and he was lying, just saying about how he takes care of us and this and that. And my
Mm,
parents were supporting myself and my son. And I just said, no, you don't. My dad does that. And on the way home, driving home in my father's car, he punched me.
mm,
And I remember thinking, if anybody ever put their hands on me, some man, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. He punched me in the side of my face, and all I could do was like, I can't believe this is happening.
mhm.
I just started crying. Then he pulled over and said he was going to kill me. So I locked the doors, but he took the keys with him. And so he unlocked the door. I'm running down the side of the highway. Nobody's stopping. So I just feel like I just need to get home. So I get in the car, and I make it home. You would think I would tell, right? But I didn't. And we went bowling because my family has an organization, so there was bowling that night to raise money for the family reunion. So we went bowling, and I just didn't speak to him, and now he's trying to be nice. And
Mm, mm,
there were so many things leading up to that that I didn't see prior. And so when I got to the point where it just didn't matter, I said, I'm done with you. But I didn't want to bring my parents in because I was grown, we were engaged. I accepted a ring that I didn't want in the first place. It was just a big mess because I
yeah.
allowed other people's expectations of what my life should be to be the priority. And
Mm,
so I gave the ring back, and he says, well, I've already paid for my reunion and I'm going. He had his own room, so I let him go. And that day, it was a big hip hop concert. We were in Baltimore. It was a huge hip hop concert in Baltimore. Kid and Play, Public Enemy,
okay. Okay.
JJ Fad, Too Short, and NWA. It was everybody, and they were staying at our hotel. So if you were in the lobby, you were up close and personal.
Ah. Yeah.
with these
Yeah.
stars, right? So we're taking pictures, we're talking, and he's following me around. Are you gonna go with me? I was like, no, I'm not gonna go with you. You're here because you wanted to be at this reunion. And we're having a good time. Everybody's having a good time. And someone touched my shoulder and he went off. Now everybody's looking at me.
Hmm.
So I go outside because I'm embarrassed and he follows me. When he comes outside, he's confronted. So I take that opportunity to run inside and go upstairs to my room. I missed the whole evening of fun.
Wow.
My one little cousin, she was 12. She got Easy E's
Oh
autograph
my goodness.
and
So
she
I'm going to
brought him
move
up
it
to me.
forward just a little bit, though. Just to move it forward just a little bit.
Okay.
So again, how did you end up taking your son to college?
Oh, okay. See, I can get on to that. But I I didn't have a choice. My parents kept my son during the day, and I went to school in the afternoon. I mean, during the week. So, because it was about an hour and a half drive. So, I got to be 19 and a student Monday through Friday. And on the weekends, I was mommy. And I had lots of friends and we had a good time, and fun was more important than school. So, I actually I started out very well, ended up getting kicked out, had to be reinstated, but I changed my major because I just didn't want to do electrical engineering. So once
Mhm.
I moved to telecommunications management, something that I really loved, I knew I had to buckle down. In the meantime, my mother gets sick.
Hmm.
She has cancer, and she's been taking care of my son. So now I have to make a new plan. And honestly, I felt abandoned because the two people, I wasn't going to have my son. But the two people that insisted that I have this baby abandoned me. His
Hmm.
father decided, since I didn't want to be with him, he would not support, and he didn't pay any child support. He didn't do any of that. So my
Hmm.
mother was my rock, and then she passes away. And so my dad tried to convince me. He says, "Well, you're close to your associates. Just get your associates, and let's go on from there." And I decided that no, I only had one class to get my associates and I was going to get my bachelor's. And I went to DeVry instead of a traditional 4 year college because I wanted to finish in 3 years. I
Okay.
also knew that I could get hands-on experience in the labs and classroom. So because I wouldn't have time to do
Right.
an internship and be a mother too. So I needed to be able to put together a network. It was Novell at the time, put together those networks in class and actually know how to set everything up before I even touched a computer in an office for
Right.
someone I was working with because I wouldn't have time to do a internship as most people did. So that's what I did. And I was in class with mostly military people. So they'd already gone through the military and they were all focused.
Yes,
So that
ma'am.
gave me the opportunity to be focused as well. So I buckled down. Most of my friends dropped out, but I stayed in school because I knew that I was going to have to support my son on my own.
Who was in college with you, you're saying now?
Yes, he did. So the last 8 months of my college career, I had to leave New Jersey because New Jersey only grants you a 4 year degree if you go to school for 4 years. But the way that they do at the technical school is you go in trimesters, not semesters. So you actually do 4 years, but
Mhm.
they're just fast tracked. And
Right.
so you have to go to another state. So I went to Illinois with my friends because they were part of my class, so they would be support. It was daunting. I ran out of money. We had to get food stamps. So there's nothing worse than sitting in a line and getting your food. In New Jersey, you use your food stamps. If there's some change left, they give you the change. But because
Right.
they tax your food in Illinois, when you're using food stamps, they're not going to give you money back. They want to give you
Okay.
another coupon. So they're yelling in the store, food stamps, food stamps. So that's so embarrassing. But I went. My dad says, "Well, I've never seen anybody take a baby to school." He was 4, and I decided, no, he's going, and we'll sleep in our car and eat hot dogs if we have to. But we didn't have to do that. They had a daycare center that was pretty inexpensive, and they served lunch there. So
Mm.
I made sure he had breakfast, and I made sure he had dinner. He always ate lunch at the daycare. I skipped lunch and I lost some weight. So when graduation came, I really looked good. I lost 2 dress sizes because we didn't have all of the money, and when our food stamps ran out, that's all we had. But I was just determined to stay in school. And so he definitely went to college before he went to kindergarten, as he has attended many a lab session. So he's come to the labs with his, looking at the oscilloscope. Usually a professor will take him and show him different things, but it wasn't easy. I cried a lot. I was in yet another ridiculous relationship at that point. Um, just, but it made me better. It
Mhm.
also, when people were saying, well, why are you going? And I said, well, I only have 8 months and I worked really hard. And
So,
so
so I'm going to interrupt you right there. So tell me a little bit about that made you better. How did that work into that?
I had to depend on myself
Mm.
and my truth and my inner faith in God. So my motto to him was, where God guides, he provides. And when I tell you that he provided, he provided. I I was reading a book by Miles Monroe,
Mhm.
and one of his books was The Key to Dying Empty.
Mm.
You're packed with all these gifts inside, just gifts and talents. And he said the wealthiest place on earth is a cemetery.
Mm.
People have gone to their graves and not used their God-given gifts, the
Exactly.
gifts and talents that they have. He said there's books that should have been written, but they're in the cemetery. There are inventions that people had and they were afraid to give, and they're in the cemetery because people don't use what they have. And I decided while I was reading this book that I wasn't going to be one of those people. I wanted to die empty.
Yeah.
And I was hungry. So I did a lot of things that I could to make that a reality. So the first thing was, I wasn't going to be on welfare. I wasn't going to use food stamps. I wanted to be able to support myself. So that had to be um, finishing school. And and I still do this today, everything that I do is at the intersection of culture, community, and technology. And once I started focusing on that for my classes, I was getting straight A's. And I
Mm.
get up in the middle of the
And
night.
what is that? Culture, community, and technology.
Yes.
Mm. All
So,
right.
and I started getting straight A's. And so when I was in my psychology class and we had to pick a philosopher.
Mm.
Philosophy, I think. We had to pick a philosopher. But I was reading this book, so I asked, can I use Miles Monroe? The professor was like, really? I was like, yes, this is what he's doing. He's talking about dying empty and finding out who you are and doing all of these things. And so he let me do it. And it was really cold in Chicago in the
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah.
I had to take my son. We would go to the mall, and they had a merry-go-round and some rides. And we'd go to the library and skating. That was our thing. That's what we could afford. That's what we did.
Yeah.
And this day I was in the library, and lo and behold, Miles Monroe was going to be at
Wow.
a church that was down the street from me that I had started going to every now and then. And he preached on that, dying empty, doing all that you can, and cultivating your gifts. And I just started just running with it. Everything that I did, every book, every paper that I wrote was about how humans use technology and how it would change our lives.
So
And
you mentioned book.
yeah,
So tell me a little bit about the book that you wrote.
my book is
Oh,
entitled Lessons in Legacy. It's about my awesome, as my cousin says, my dope family, because it is dope. Um, Starts with the first African brought here on the in the Middle Passage on a slave ship. He was thrown overboard and told he and I think four others. I guess it was a game, and they were told if they could swim ashore that they would live. So he swam ashore. Of course, he lived, and then he was still placed on the auction block, and he was captured by John Newman. And the funny part about this story is I'm an only child, and my son is an only child. His father is an only child, so he has no aunts and uncles. But my family, my grandmother's side of her family are so close and so
mm,
huge that he doesn't miss them. And I don't miss the other parts that are missing for me. So it's a blessing and a curse
mm,
because I know really nothing about my mother's family because she joined in with my father's family, and
yeah.
I just never felt like I missed anything. Now I'm catching up to figure out who her side of the family is.
So
But
was that the driving force for the book?
um yeah, because I know the story. And people always ask me or my cousin who was older than me, and her mother just passed away. My dad is 88, he'll be 89 in June, and his memory is not what it used to be. And so I figure this is the same thing that's going to happen for us. At some point, you're not going to remember everything. And so I decided to put it in a book so that everybody would have it. And it is my grandmother's family story. And I told you John Newman, right? Because both my grandmother and my grandfather come from different streams in that same line, which makes it easy for me. But I tell the JMC family, that's the Johnson McFarland McQueen family. That's my grandmom's people, the people that I know. So I was able to write a book about what I know. I gave them the lineage in the first half, the story of how we put together a formal organization to ensure that we know who we are, where we come from, and we can pass it on, as well as we make sure that we handle all of our business formally, whether
Mm,
it's collection of money, um, benevolence to other family members. There's never a question of where the money's going and
mm,
who did what with it, because no one person, we have a treasurer, we have a financial secretary, we have a,
wow.
it has to go through everything. And that way we can remain family and not get
Yeah.
off track with, with just business and someone not making a good decision. And so, because everybody always asks, well, your family is so huge. And no, my family is no bigger than anyone else's, but they made it a point to include extended family and to stay
Mm, mm.
and to keep their ties together, that I just felt like I needed to put it in a book. And
And
I,
how did you do the research for that?
so I've lived the research.
Wow.
I'm an only child. I'm one of 26 grandchildren that my grandparents have. My dad is the second oldest, but I'm number 21.
Oh,
So, so I have lots of older cousins, and so the five that are under me, they had each other and their older siblings to watch them, and I
mm,
stayed with grandma. And my grandmother is a storyteller. My father is a
awesome.
storyteller, and I am a storyteller. So, the West African word for that is griot.
Real, yes.
So I'm a griot, and because I know that I'm a griot because I actually listened to the stories because they were in the
Mm,
same place that I was. I listened and I remembered, and I was able to tell those stories. And then my grandmother's youngest sister is only 5 years older than my dad, and she too is a griot. And so whatever I needed to verify, I could just ask them.
Wow.
After that, there are some stories that they couldn't corroborate, so I got into genealogy. So whatever I could corroborate through census, that kind of thing, I did. And then there were some things that we needed to use DNA for. And so they all volunteered to do DNA. So I have my aunt's DNA, my dad's, a cousin's, and then I did mine. And so we can pull out the story of our lives. And I put it in a book. I
Amazing.
hope to
Well,
do that
I'm sorry,
for
go
my
ahead.
mother's family, but at this point, I'm still doing the research.
So your book is being published or it's out now?
My book is, you can still pre-order, but it will launch on the 16th. That's next
Um,
Tuesday.
yeah, coming up
So on
soon.
next Tuesday, you can buy it online. Um, the hardcover is just, you have to buy it through my website. So you can go to dreamaloudwithkendra.com and click on my book, and you can get the book. Or if you just want a digital copy, because the third section of the book is a how-to guide on how you can do the same.
Awesome.
Do the research.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you can use DNA and old documents to verify stories that you have about your family. And then, because we share all that information at reunions, I share how to put your organization together, how to build bylaws, as well as how to plan for a reunion. Now, we plan for a whole year. It takes us 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
This great 3-day reunion.
Okay.
So there is a timeline, checklist, everything that anyone needs to plan their own family reunion. If you want a successful reunion, you can follow this plan because we've been doing it for 40 plus years. And that 40 plus years is only the second iteration of family reunions because they used to do them in the 50s.
Wow.
So in the 50s and the 60s until my great grandmother passed in 66. And then they didn't pick it up again until 1979 when they started planning for the first reunion in 1980. And
Awesome.
I just feel that when you know who you are, then you can debunk any myth that comes your way.
Mm.
What the masses think of you, no family is a monolith. Everybody is different. There are traditions that you have that you need to cultivate and keep. There are some other traditions that we probably should do away with. But if you don't know your history, then you don't know where to start. You don't know why we do certain things. And I tell my family all the time when they ask, well, why do you do this? And I tell them about their great grandmother.
Mm.
I remember talking to my cousin, and I was just telling her what my dad has told about my great grandmother. I wasn't born when she passed away, but
Yeah.
he holds her in such high esteem. And he's told these stories that I listened to. When I told her, this was years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and how she fed everybody who came through her neighborhood. And she was a widow,
Wow.
14 kids, and she was a widow.
And wow.
But she was a landowner, and she had a cane mill. She raised cane,
Yeah.
probably both ways. She had a cane mill, and she sold her syrup, and she was a midwife.
Wow.
So when I was telling my cousin about this,
Yeah.
and she goes, "Oh, that's where we get it from," because everybody knows you can come to my house, you can go to Jackie's house, you can go to their house, and there's going to be food. And
Yeah.
it's not just
Yeah.
enough for us. We always cook enough for someone else to come in. Sunday dinner is still a thing at my house.
Awesome.
My mother-in-law, my in-laws, my father, they all come
Yeah.
for dinner. And it's a tradition. It is a southern thing. So even though most of us have moved north, we
Mm.
still live with that South Carolina,
Yeah.
the
Love the sound, Jay.
helping one another,
Yeah.
get together with your family. Most people only assume the immediate family, mother, father, sister, brothers, maybe some nieces and nephews. Well, we don't do it that way. My father's first cousins, I call them aunt and uncle because that's how close they are. If I show
Wow.
up at their house, I know that I'm truly welcome. They're not saying, why is she here?
Yeah.
Um, and so I do have an affinity for studying the African American traditions
Mm.
and tracing them back because don't forget, everything I do is at the intersection of culture, community, and technology.
I'm
So,
going to ask you a question about that actually.
okay,
Moving forward toward your coaching, because I know that you're doing this experiential, that big word, what was it now?
experiential learning.
Learning and lifestyle facilitator. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I like to learn through experience. And so I would assume that my ideal client likes to learn through experience too. If you're not that type of learner, I'm probably not your facilitator or your coach. Um, Being all that I am, finding out who I am at the core is so important to fulfilling your purpose and
Yeah.
walking it out with passion because we're good at a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that that's what you want to do. I was telling one of my coaching groups, I can sew, and I sew very well. Both of my grandmothers sew without patterns, and I'm pretty good at it, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to sew for other people. In fact, I haven't touched my sewing machine in about 15 years. That
Wow.
tells me I no longer have a passion for that.
Right.
At some point, there was a purpose in it, but I'm moving on. But at
Yeah.
my core, no matter what happens, I know that I'm a storyteller and I'm a helper and I'm an encourager. And so in my coaching, I want to help people to figure out and know that they know that they know who they are at their core and what it is that they need to do to walk in their purpose and their passion. And
That,
so in coaching, I partner with my clients to figure that out for themselves. But I
awesome.
also
So now
have,
another, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
So you talked about that and you talked about the helping and just the passion that you have. Now, this series is called Phenomenal Speaks, right?
Mhm.
So if I were to ask you like phenomenal, tell me what would that mean to you?
Phenomenal. It means extraordinary. It means beyond the norm,
Mm,
outstanding. And I think everybody has the opportunity to be phenomenal if they would be their authentic self. Because the world is waiting for everyone to be themselves. We don't need another copy. Whenever you're a copy or you're doing something that someone else is doing in their way and not your way, because there's plenty of people who are doing things that you're doing, but no one will do it like you because we are all unique. Then you become
love
phenomenal.
it. I love it. So next question. So the ending is my rapid fire question. So my next question to you would be, we've gone through this pandemic and had a lot going on. Many changes have happened during that time. What would you tell your pre-pandemic self looking at your life now?
My pre-pandemic self. I would say don't let fear stop you. Um, the things that I'm doing now, I could have been doing pre-pandemic. But there's fear, and I believe that we have to have courage to do anything, and so I do operate in courage, but there's a lot of things that I let go by the wayside because I let life get in the way.
Mm,
So I wouldn't let life get in the way pre-pandemic self, that's what I tell myself. Go ahead and fulfill your purpose and do everything. And remember the promise that you made to yourself, because it's easy to get complacent. And if we haven't figured out anything through this pandemic, is nothing is promised. Life is not promised. And so don't wait. Don't procrastinate. Move through it even if you have fear about it.
Awesome. That's a great answer. So, next question. So, in life, we make many choices every day, throughout the day. Many, many, many choices. So, if you had to think back to your most phenomenal choice, what would that be?
At this point, my most phenomenal choice was to be mom. Was to
Mm,
be mom. My son is my greatest achievement. Now I get to sit back and watch him live his life. And
mm,
because I'm a stickler, there were lots of decisions made for me. I am now a stickler for making my own choices and allowing him to do the same.
mhm,
So he is my greatest accomplishment. Choosing to be his mother has taught me as well. It's taught me to not control your children. That's not why they're here. You're supposed to find out what their purpose and their passion is and expose them to everything that they want to do. And when I exposed him, I was exposing myself because we were growing together.
mhm.
So, um, that is it. And I it made my life richer. I only have one child. What I thought was a doomsday and a damper in my plans turned out to be my greatest gift, because I learned leadership by being a mom. I learned compassion, not to judge, to help even more. To who do you encourage more than your children? No one. So that encouragement, all of that comes from being a mother. So I'm glad that I stepped out and decided that I'm going to be the mom, not Pam. I was going to be the mom, not the person that he called by my first name. And
Awesome.
the even better than that is, while I do not condone or encourage teen pregnancy. When he graduated high school, I was 37.
Yeah.
He graduated college. I could say I was the mother of a college graduate at 41. And then my life was still beginning. And so
Yeah.
there's so much more that I want to do.
Awesome. So
And there
you
are no
kind of
do-overs.
may have answered this talking about that book that you read earlier. But another question. If you could meet one legend today, living or dead, who would it be and what one question would you ask them?
Well, actually, it's not Miles Monroe, because I did get to say it. I would, outside of family members, because I would like to meet my great grandmother because they speak so highly of her. But I'm going to say Maya Angelou. First of all, I did not know much about Maya until I started reading her books. And I was 22, right after my mother died. And her stories and her candor and just everything that she put out there, she left no stone unturned. No one could ever go and gossip about her or tell a story, tell a secret that the world didn't know, because she told it herself. And I was just enamored by her truthfulness. But in her truthfulness, I learned about myself. She was 17 when she had her son. And she still allowed herself to live. And I learned from that. I call her Mother Meyer. I never got to meet her. But just reading the whole series of her books kind of paralleled my life. And I said, this lady is in her 20s. She's in Egypt, in Ghana, and she was in Porgy and Bess, so she was all over Europe having dinner with strangers. Some of them did not even speak the language. And she spoke several languages. I only speak Spanish. But I am enamored with the things that she did. And she was just honest. Not everything was perfect. And I used that roadmap, her roadmap,
Mm.
to actually live my life. So I'm behind because I'm not an expat yet. She has lived in Ghana. She has lived in other places and I'm still living here. And she was the reason that I was able to pack up and move to Chicago for those 8 months, not knowing the soul and doing what I needed to do because I read it in her book. And so if I could ask her a question, it would be because I think I'm a lot like Maya. Mother Maya, because I don't want to just, I want to put a handle on her name. I think I am a lot like her. How do you, my question would be, how do I put a label on all that I am?
Mm.
Dick Gregory, I read one of his books, the last one, and it was like a love letter to Black America. And he said, he was saying that you need to let the world know who you are. And then he says, but in the case of the Maya Angelou types, singer, writer, dancer, the first woman to do the trolley cars in San Francisco. Don't forget she was a madam and a prostitute at some point. She was a cook. She is a teacher. She did all of these things. And she said, so what? We're all in the Stuff Happens Club. And this is what makes me me. I would ask her, how do you put a label on that?
Mm.
And do you have any regrets? The other thing I learned from her was she said, I love my son, but I'm not in love with him. I have a lot of questions for Mother Maya.
So if you were to meet Mother Maya, before the question, what would be your first statement to her?
Thank you. Thank you. There's nothing new under the sun. She was abused. She she talked about in her last book dating this boxer, took her out to the beach, and he beat her senseless. For what? And she didn't have to tell those stories, but she did. And how many people did she help? Thank you.
She was one person. I had a list of people that I wanted to meet in my life, and she was one of the people that I had the absolute honor to be able to meet. And I think thank you is such an appropriate word for someone as phenomenal as Miss Mayan.
Phenomenal indeed.
Phenomenal indeed. So, Kendra, before we go, what would you want others to know about you that they don't know now?
Hmm. I The question is interesting because I'm one. I live for an audience of one. So I have decided that what other people think doesn't matter. But if I had to pick something that I'm continually working on improving myself and being authentically myself as I help other people to do the same.
And as you take that journey to being authentically yourself, because it's always a journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you achieve that goal, or is that an achievable goal, actually?
Continuous improvement. Now, I think there's always room for improvement.
Mhm.
The goal, and I think I'm okay with this. The goal is being satisfied, or at least okay with where you are at the time. I used to make the mistake of always focus on the goal, but the process is much more important than the end result. That's where all the answers are. And there are no do-overs. So even as a mother, if there was something that I would say to myself, it would be slow down because there are no do-overs. Now I always felt like there's no do-overs, so that's why I wanted to make sure I did everything that I could for my son, but just the regular time. I always rushed everywhere. Come on, we have to go over here. We're gonna get it over here. You know, it was always a rush, 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 rush. I should have stopped. Like when people have babies and they stop to look at that ant because they're just so enamored by the ant, and they stop and they wait for them. Now that, I think that is the robber of a young parent.
Mm.
Parents allow their children to stop and wait, where the younger parent is always in a rush. And if I could do anything over, it would be that. Slow down and enjoy the process.
So my last question to you, as you see on um, my website and everything else, I ask a question that is an interesting one to answer. So what do you hear when you listen?
Depends. When I'm listening to others, I'm an analyzer, so I want to know where your pain is. And I listen to understand, because it's easy to write people off. Oh, they were just rude. But if you listen closely, you can understand many times why they are the way they are, or why they do the things that they do. For myself, if it's just me, I'm listening for direction, clarity. It usually comes like when you go within. You don't have to be doing a lot of things. You just need to be silent and let the soul speak.
That is absolutely a beautiful answer to that question. And I have to tell you, I have completely enjoyed, appreciated, and I honor you as a phenomenal woman. I
Thank
honor
you.
you as a phenomenal mother, wife, daughter, all the things that describe your core. I honor you for all of those things. I especially honor you for your phenomenal voice. Because as we know, our voices, they're everything, right? There's our words. They're there because we can use those words to share, to grow, give, to connect, to create a legacy, as you have done with your book.
Yes.
I absolutely congratulate you on your book. I
Thank
cannot
you.
wait to read it. I'm so looking forward to that. It has to be international shipping,
Yeah.
so I can get a copy of that. I'm so looking forward to that. What I would like is after is all settled with the book and that next journey that you're going to be doing, whatever that may be, because I know it's going to be something absolutely phenomenal. I would love for you to come back and tell us more about what you're doing. Would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely. We have so much more to talk about.
We have so much more to talk about, and we'll also share later um, about the project that we're going to be working on as well.
Yeah.
And we can share that. We may just come back and have a short live just to share a little bit about what we're going to be doing, what that project looks like, and why it's going to be so phenomenal and help so many women, regardless of culture or generation or race. The
Yeah.
project is just going to be absolutely something that will be beneficial based on life and stories, reality and dreams. And
Yes.
I'm really, really
It's our
looking forward
story.
to that. It's our story. And I'm so looking forward to how we share it. And not only how we share it, but who we touch when we share it as well. So it has been absolutely wonderful, not only just having this time with you, but just getting to know you from the time you came to Dubai, which is how we actually met. You coming here to Dubai with my travel company, and
Yes.
move forward to me teaching you coaching for 30 weeks, uh, being your mentor, and just being able, but most of all, being able to be your friend and be able to call you friend. So I honor you, my sister.
Thank you.
Thank you so very, 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 very much for this time. I want to thank everyone that is listening in, whether it's on Facebook, here in Zoom. I thank you so much for joining. I hope that you will be with me next week. We'll have another phenomenal voice here. I really hope that you'll be able to join us and that I really look forward to this. This is going to be an every week thing. So I know, right? Not only is it going to be a every week thing, but phenomenal voices come from everywhere, come from all over the world. They come from all walks of life. So just you may just be getting an email saying, when do you want to become a phenomenal voice with Journey with Franda? So again, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. Most of all, I thank my two kings. You are my life. You are my world. You give me strength. You always have my back. I love my king. Thank you so much and good evening, everyone.
Bye, everyone.